Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video here today for round 7 of the RTA Motorsport LMP2 Cup by Motorsport.ie. If you did miss my last video of this championship around Silverstone for round 5, make sure you give that a look before we go. Unfortunately I did miss the previous round at Daytona. I was away on holidays, and unfortunate to miss Daytona as it's a track I do like, and even more unfortunate to come back to one of my least favourite tracks on iRacing, that being Road Atlanta. And a lot more unfortunate things about this race, but we'll get back to that in just a minute. Taking a look at the championship standings after Daytona, you can see Dylan McClemens leads the way by 53 points over Jason Smith, so good healthy lead for Dylan here, and likely going to wrap up the championship by the time we get to the checker flag of race 3 in Interlagos next week. And for ourselves down in P21, obviously scoring no points last week, not racing, so we moved down a few spots and hopefully we can try and make those back up again here today. So getting back to the unfortunate things that I mentioned, and I do have a lot of excuses lined up for this, but first of all, you might notice in the webcam down bottom corner I do have a bandage on my hand, and that is because I ended up giving myself a cut requiring 9 stitches in total to put my hand back together. So for this race, not entirely comfortable driving. I had to change the way I was holding the wheel and changing gears. Luckily it was the upshift hand, my right hand, so not too much trouble with the gear changing, but just with holding the wheel feeling a bit unnatural. And then to add to that, coming back to, as I mentioned, one of my least favourite tracks on iRacing, mainly because it's one that I'm just not very comfortable with, so I haven't raced that a lot because I tell myself that I don't like it. And then it's raining as well, so could have done with this one being dry, could have led to a few less snaps of oversteer, which probably would have made it a bit easier to race with my injured hand, but it is what it is, and I'm going to have to try and deal with it and see what we can do. Well, as I've been getting the excuses out of the way, qualifying has been going on in the background, and really all I've been showing so far is all the mistakes I've been making. Just running wide a lot of different corners, getting snaps of oversteer that are ruining my laps. One here you can see again the chicane there, just running a bit wide on the curb, upsetting the car. About 4.5 minutes left now. We're going to start our one and only qualifying lap that was actually counted, and really wasn't even a great lap at that. So heading into turn 1, puddle there on the curb on the inside on the racing line. Yeah, snap about halfway through. Very tricky corner. Now we head into another tricky chicane here. Braking and turning, which is hard enough in the dry, it's even more difficult in the wet. As now we head down the hill through the S's. Very understeery in the wet conditions, and now into one of my least favourite corners on the track. Taking the racing line in the wet there on the exit, going all over the curb. It's a bit sketchy in the wet, but you are just about able to manage. And now into the double right-hander. 2 corners on the track that I actually felt pretty comfortable at, and you'll see throughout the rest of this video that seems to be somewhere that I had a lot of confidence, but on this occasion running wide on the exit on the curb, which is not something you want to do in these conditions, as you don't get the traction that you really want to set you up down the longest straight on the track. Through the kink now, over the crest of the hill as we go downhill, braking in the middle of the track, because if you take the racing line on the right hand side you will go straight on into the gravel. Avoiding the curves through this final chicane as we crest over the hill now down into the final turn. Trying to not lose the car, as there seemed to be a lot of standing water there, which was making me lose the back end on a few occasions. When we come across the line we set a 122.3, which isn't great and puts us in P14. And we did go again, went into the corners that I said I felt like I was most confident at. We end up just clipping the curb, going wide on the second part and invalidating. We're about 3/10 up on that lap, so there is improvement to be made. Then again, on our final lap we make the exact same mistake, and that is our qualifying over. So in the end it was Dylan McClemens, championship leader, taking pole position by about 3/10 over Jason Smith, so a pretty healthy gap between P1 and P2. Then myself down in P14 out of just 15 drivers this round. suppose towards the end of any championship in sim racing, people tend to drop off. Attendance seems to get a bit low. I know from experience from being involved with running leagues that that's usually how it plays out. But about 3.5 seconds off pole. I feel like there was definitely a lot more time in that. We're making a lot of mistakes, which I wasn't making in qualifying. So I feel like probably could have been in the top 10 if everything had gone right in this session. But it is what it is, and we're going to start race 1 from P14 and second last on the grid. So as we come out of the chicane, come up the hill to start race 1 here at Road Atlanta, the light go green and we are off, and we get a pretty good jump heading into the final turn, but leaving a bit too much space, we run out onto the grass, and luckily we managed to stay facing the right direction as we lose those 2 positions into turn 1. Taking it nice and easy, didn't have really any running in practice in the spray, so an adventure into the unknown here. Heads into the chicane, down the inside of David Prunty, who seemed to just back out of that, which probably a sensible move, and if he hadn't have done that earlier, I probably would have done it eventually. Now down the hill, taking it really easy here, braking really early, going very slow compared to what we were in qualifying, as now we try and get a bit of clear air in front of us, pulling to the right hand or left hand side out of the spray as we head into the double right hander. And as I said in qualifying, I felt very confident. You can see that just through the second turn of those 2 we closed up on Simon under braking, and we managed to get a pretty good exit as well. In the slipstream now down the back straight, like I said in qualifying, you don't want to be on the right hand side here, just very slippery, and you will end up going straight on if you try and brake there. So everybody braking in the middle of the track, we ended up going a bit too far left there, dipping the wheel into the grass, and luckily we managed to recover it and get the car stopped. We come now down to the final turn to end lap 1. Through the final turn, we just completely lose the back of the car, spins us into the wall, and that is our race over pretty much. Looking at our replay here now, you can see just there must be a river or something going across the track there, and completely lost all grip. Probably wasn't the best line by me either, which didn't help, but still just no chance of trying to save that. Luckily in RTA there is fast repair, so we got towed back to the pits, got repaired quickly, and now we're back out on the track, although a lap behind everyone. And you can see there on our out lap, cold tyres, just having a bit of a spin, and then into the final chicane. You can see, like I said, we were just a bit too far to the right, had the wheel on the dry racing line. We locked up and ended up going straight on, and then just a little bit later we have another moment at my least favourite corner on the track now.
Watch flag.
But as we come now around the final turn to start our final lap, decide that just going to pull to the side, not bother completing the final lap because I'm not going to gain anything from it. So in the end, Jason Smith took the win, pole sitter Dylan McClemens dropping 3 places down to 4th, and we ended up finishing 2 laps behind them because we decided to retire down in P15. Did only lose 1 place, but no offence to any of the drivers in this league, but Jamal up in P6, I feel like we've been quicker than him all season, and yeah, there's a lot of drivers ahead of us that I feel that is quicker than throughout this season, and I should probably be finishing ahead of. But they managed to keep it on the track for this race, and want to try and have to make amends in the next 2 races and get some good results. So once again, this time from the very back of the grid, we get going here for race 2 in Road Atlanta. Through the final turn, the cars ahead, Tony Stack and Philip Upton, seem to get a better run than them, but heading down into turn 1, not really going to be able to make a move. Bit caught out there by Tony, braking a little bit earlier than I was expecting, but luckily we managed to stay out of the back of him, as we were taking it nice and easy as well on these cold tyres in these wet conditions. As out of the chicane, Philip now ahead of us, we weren't able to get a move around the outside, which seemed to be like it might have been possible. Philip running a bit wide, but into this left-hander there, I was taking it way too cautiously compared to everybody else, and we ended up losing about a second to the cars ahead. But we're going to make that back now through these 2 turns. concertina effect and myself having a bit more clear air than the cars ahead as through the second part onto the back straight. Dermot Toomey, I think he was sent around for a spin. I don't think it was spinning by himself. I think he was aided in that, but we managed to move up a place as now down the back straight into the chicane. It said that you don't want to be on the right hand side, but we're going to try and make a move here on Philip. You can't brake as late as you would like to on, say, the middle of the track or the left hand side, so we brake really early there and Philip managed to hold position. We get a good run through the chicane though, and we're right back on the back of him through the final turn, taking it a lot slower than we did in the previous race. Don't want a repeat of ending in the wall on the left hand side. So we managed to survive and make it onto lap 2 here in race 2. We skip ahead then onto lap 3, heading onto the back straight here. Like I'd be saying, just seem to be getting a really good run through the turn before the back straight. I would be saying the car numbers, but I don't have a track map in front of me at the moment, and I just want to get this recorded. But on the back straight now, well in the slipstream of Philip ahead, and once again we're going to pull to the right hand side. Luckily for us, Philip, he actually backs out, and that means we're able to move back into the centre of the track. Brake was late as we want to in these conditions and move up into P13. We also get right onto the back of Tony's stack here then, as we gotta slow down there through the chicane, which luckily you can kind of ignore them in these conditions and just clear themselves before you get to turn 1. Back straight once again then on lap 4, again in the slipstream of Tony, and once again going to try and make a move on the right hand side, having to brake early again, and you could see that Tony, he just puts a bit of a gap on braking since we have to brake earlier, but we managed to get a good run through the chicane and gain that time back. Unfortunately not able to get a good enough run to try and make a move through the final turn onto the pit straight, and we have a big moment there just clipping the curb as we set our fastest lap of the race. But into turn 1, he just put a wheel on the grass on the left hand side, and even in the dry, if you do that, you're probably going to end up running wide off the track, and in the wet conditions, slippery grass, it's more amplified. So we were in a battle to try and make up a few positions, and now we ended up losing a couple of more. A couple of laps later then, another big moment through turn 1, but Peter McCann had a bigger moment somewhere off the track, and we managed to make up a place there. And then skipping along onto the next lap, and Logan Hoyes had a similar issue, having another moment like myself and Peter, and we move up once again now into P12. Going through the chicane here then on lap 9, coming down the hill, and weird one here as Dermot ahead, he don't know if he had a big snap or what happened, but he seemed to be going very slowly even compared to me, and I was terrible through that section of track. And I think there was a bit of an overlap between the two cars at one point. Weren't able to get a move done, unfortunately, which would have been nice. But yeah, not really too sure what happened there. It's now into the corner before the back straight. Dermot, he didn't have a great run there. We had a look up the inside, but on the exit he had the better line and managed to stay ahead. Skip forward a bit now, further down to the end of the back straight, and up ahead I believe that was Philip Upson having, I presume, a bit of a lock up going off the track, rejoining there, but we managed to get ahead before he gets going again. And now through the final turn, another bit of a moment. Again, I wasn't taking a good line for a lot of these races through there, but into turn 1 on this occasion we take an even worse line. We just hit the puddle beside the curb, go for a spin, and unfortunate for Logan, he was very close behind us and wasn't able to avoid hitting us. So yeah, very unfortunate there. As we skip ahead now to the final lap of the race, into the final turn, Logan was ahead and he pulled into the pits, so I ran off the track on the outside. We come across the line to finish this race in P13.
It's over.
So 13th it was then, should have been 14th, but Logan pulled into the pits on the last lap for some reason, so again, an extra place. Again, we were up fighting with Philip 2 places ahead of us. We're fighting with Tony actually in P9, so I feel like there's definitely a chance for a top 10 at least, maybe a top 8 in this race. And I'm not being confident on where to place my car around a lot of the turns, and came back to bias from not being able to do enough practice for this race. But we're going to start the final race in P13, which is somehow the highest we're going to start in any of these 3 races. So yeah, with that, let's get into it. So for the final time this season, we go green here at Road Atlanta for race 3. Through the final turn, taking it nice and easy, but somebody that wasn't is Jason. He managed to get underneath us there, a lot more confident than we were, and into turn 1. Philip Upson runs wide there, so managed to move up a place. Sean McClemens, presumably had some kind of a snap or a half spin there, just a moment. Going slow, he managed to get a move done on him as well. As Jason, who's there behind us, is now up 2 places ahead of us, so rapid start from him. A lot of confidence, especially after winning the first race. For us, we end up going for our first spin of this race and move down into last. Skipping ahead to the end of lap 2, then Peter McCann and David Prunty off the track after having, I don't know if they both had a moment together or their own separate moments, but we move up 2 places there. Skipping ahead to the end of lap 3, then through the final turn we have a big moment. Very good save, if I do say so myself there, as somehow we set our fastest lap of the race. And then skipping ahead a lap later, and once again we have an even bigger moment into the final turn, and I really don't know how I managed to save that one, but luckily we're still going in the right direction. For now anyway, as through the first turn, just like we did in the previous race, going for a spin. Luckily this time no one else caught up in it, but that just ended up setting the tone for the rest of this race. A few laps later we have a moment heading on to the back straight, just clipping the curb and going wide. A bit later then, we're after catching up to Peter McCann, who's after having a moment of his own as well, so I was very frustrated at this point and hoping that catching up to Peter I'd be able to have some kind of a decent race, but we end up going for another spin, and after that I decided that I'd had enough and I decided to retire from the race. So Dylan managed to win in the end, extending his championship lead going into the final round. For us, down at 15th and last, retiring 7 laps behind, and looking at the results at the end, if we had stayed in, might have finished in P11, P12 at best probably. That's if we managed to have no more spins, which in all honesty was fairly unlikely with the way things were going, but I just had enough at that stage, and my hand was starting to get a bit sore from the way I was holding it on the wheel, and being so far behind everyone, I just decided that I wasn't going to have any fun continuing on that race, and it was better to just give up and not cause myself any more hardship. Looking at the standings then, and Dylan holds a 64-point lead going into the final round with just 90 points available, and nobody this season has won all 3 races, so it's looking pretty good for him to wrap up the title. For ourselves down in P20, moving up 1 place just because of how poor the attendance was, meaning that we were able to get a few points even with our terrible results. And unfortunately that's as far up as we are going to be. At the time of this race, I didn't know that I wasn't going to be able to take part in the final race at Interlagos, which is unfortunate because it's one of my favourite tracks on iRacing, but I'm going to be away from work next Tuesday when the race is on and not going to be able to take part. At the start of the season, we set our goal to try and get into the top 15, which, looking back on it, might have been a bit optimistic. I think that in the opening round in Portimao, we got a good bit of luck with other people having poor races and kind of led us into a false sense of security. But still learnt a lot from this season, both about driving this car, driving in the rain, which I hadn't done before this championship, and just about how the drivers in this league race and how to race against different drivers, which will hopefully stand to us in future seasons, which I hope to take part in, especially the next one in the F4 cars. I do much prefer the Formula cars compared to the sports cars or tin top cars, whatever you want to call them. So hopefully I can take part in that championship, and hopefully we can try and have a few better races than we did in this season. But that's it for this video and for this season of RTA Motorsport. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more league racing videos with RTA. And if you want to get involved with this league, leave a comment down below and I'll get you an invite to the Discord server. But thanks very much for watching. Until the next one, see you then.